Hi, this is Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to this special call we're doing. I'm on the line with Maz Irwin, and we're looking at the view out her back porch. And Maz, you want to tell me while where people are still streaming into the conference here, so you might just
Yep,
tell folks a
sure.
little bit
Hi,
about where this is?
hi everyone. I live about 40 minutes drive south of Canberra, in New South Wales. It's a little country town called Urila, and that's the view out my living room window. Yep, and it looks like that a lot of the time as the sun's setting. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And just before we started, you were talking about the kangaroos that live out there. You see quite a few of those?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, between the dam that you can see just behind the letters and the fence, there's kangaroos all day long, and early in the morning when we wake up, they're all out there having a feed. It's
That's
been a
amazing.
very good season for them too, because we've had a lot of rain, which is very welcome after the last few
Yeah.
years. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Well, that's gorgeous. Alrighty, it
yeah.
looks like most everybody's streamed into the room here, and we'll get started with this. Just a little housekeeping as we get started.
Yep.
The first thing to know is that on your control panel there's a chat uh, area. You can put questions in. And in the chat window, I'm going to be putting in a few links as we go through the presentation today that will be helpful to you. And for those of you that are listening on the recording of this, which we had quite a few folks signed up today, and what we know from doing these a lot is that about half the people participate live and the other half participate by listening to the recording. So we want to welcome you here as well. And you can just pop a question in there. We'll be looking at those throughout, and we'll stop every so often and go through the questions there that have come in. And so just feel free to go ahead and take a look in or pop your question in there. And many of you know me because you've purchased our products or been to one of our events on either online or in person. And I'm the founder of Churchill Method. That's Barefoot Consultants. It is part of Churchill Method. About 14 years ago, I moved to Mexico in 2007, and so that's when I was working online, because I had been for a number of years. And that was just when in 2008, we had sort of a downturn in the economy, and a lot of folks who thought I was crazy for moving to Mexico called me up and said, "Tell me again how you're living at the beach in Mexico and still running your consulting business." So there I was, and that was one of the people that I initially helped get started in freelancing. Said, you ought to turn this into a training program. And that was 45,000 people ago purchasing our programs or attending our workshops or participating in coaching. So it's been quite the ride over the last 13 years, and very
Mm.
enjoyable. As you can see, I'm feeding the kangaroo there. You can't so much see it in that top right hand corner, but I was with Winston Churchill's granddaughter at the War Room Museum in London. We had one of our coaches trainings there, and most of my day I'm sitting at my desk training. We do a lot of online training now with the pandemic. We used to do about 6 events every year, as you can see sort of at the bottom there, and looking forward to going back to those events. I was working on my escape plan from corporate America for 20 years, and I finally figured out how to do it at about age 53 and was pretty excited about that. So there's just a lot of good opportunity to find ways to make a living and do things around the world. So that's great. And this is Maz, and there's, if you'll hold on while I grab a clip here. Let's see if I can do this here, and I'll give you a link to this. This is will be her bio on our website, and I'm also going to put in her calendar link because obviously this is a presentation that's general in nature, and to make this real for people, we found that it really is helpful to speak with a coach and figure out how this could work for you. Everybody's got different skills, different background. But if you take a look in the chat window there, you'll see Maz's bio and then also a link to her calendar. So if it makes sense to you as we're going through this, you're welcome to sign up for that. And thanks, Maz, for being here and help set all this up.
That's okay.
Help me
Okay.
figure
Good.
out what
Yeah.
time zone I'm in and
Yeah,
how we
that's right. Yeah,
it's
poor Winton, he had to get up at 3:30 in the
yes,
morning.
it's certainly it's not even the crack of dawn here yet, but that's okay.
That's
It's
yeah.
it's much easier the times that I've been to Australia than now, but we're looking forward to going back again. So
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
so
Hopefully in the not too distant future.
yes, yeah, amazing. And of course, we've all had enough of COVID, and we've got our fingers crossed that we're coming out of that, the worst of it, and we're all starting to move around. I'm plotting my trip back to Mexico. I was on my way to a business engagement in Los Angeles when the lockdown occurred, and so I was packed for 2 weeks. I was in Dallas for a few days, and I got stuck here. So I've been in Dallas
Mm,
since the beginning of the pandemic. And the one thing that I'd love for you to take away from this is that we have never seen a time in our lives, certainly with a pandemic, but the real important part is that every business, every nonprofit, every government organization basically has to reinvent itself in one way or another now that we've gone through this. They're coming up with new
mm,
business models, the whole idea of social distancing. They need new marketing materials. They need new, um, uh, customer relationship strategies. I was just talking to somebody recently about Airbnbs and how they've had to rewrite all their discussions of their Airbnb place and add uh, the fact that they go through this cleaning process and that kind of thing. So, as the whole world
mm.
opens up for travel, every single travel destination is going to be, they can't just use what they had before because the traveler today wants to know that it's safe and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. The other
Mm,
piece of that is that companies have to comply with new policies and procedures. So a lot of development now of that coming out as they open up. How do we open up? What do we do? And around the world there's federal policies and there's state policies and there's local policies. So this is going to be sort of a matrix of things that organizations have to comply with and figure stuff out, which means lots of writing, lots of PowerPoint,
mm.
lots of updating of websites, lots of making doing training. I was talking to another uh, freelancer just a few days ago that was uh, helping a company train employees. They've got employees scattered in different parts of the world. They all have to be trained on certain new policies and procedures and that kind of thing, which means building PowerPoints. And it also means delivering PowerPoints. And we've seen a lot of people do that along the way. Customer service loads as things open up, those are can be peaking for some companies, especially in the tourism area and that kind of thing, because in many cases, these organizations have lost employees to the pandemic. A year and a half is a long time to be parked at home. And for a lot of people, that worked out pretty good. But also for a lot of people, that if they had, here where I am in Dallas, I'm near the amusement parks like Six Flags and a whole bunch of others, and they had to downsize their organizations, obviously, because nobody was walking in the front door, and so building those organizations back is a challenge, and that whole idea of customer re-engagement is important. And one of the concepts that we teach in our programs is that baby boomers have this massive collection of skills, of knowledge, of experience, and problem solving. And, I don't know that there's been a time in world history since we've all been alive that there's been as many problems to solve as there are right now. I mean, everybody all at the same uh, time. And so just to put a fine point on it, there's incredible demand right now for people that can write, for people that know how to have conversations. And if, I sound like that old guy that says, "Get off my lawn." But if you've had the joy of trying to converse with a 25-year-old, they want to talk on chat or whatever, and it's crazy. And having the ability to communicate you may not think of it as a skill, but many organizations think of it as a skill. And so, and basically what we're having to kind of characterize the freelancing opportunity is all these organizations have to have people that have relationship skills, carry on a conversation, help somebody, their clients, their employees, figure out how to do what they need to do there. So that's important. And just a glance around the Google, if you Google COVID and freelancing, you'll see lots of articles talking about how companies are going from an employee only model now to gain more flexibility. They're going to an employee and freelancing model because they can bring in freelancers for a short period of time for peak loads as they get ramped up now. They don't have to commit to hiring new employees full time. They can bring in people, and as we open up, none of us really knows uh, how fast the opening up is going to go, but this is really expected to, um, uh, has driven home this point that people can work from home successfully. In the 20 years that I've been freelancing online, there was always this fairly large group of people and organizations that said we couldn't possibly have people working from home. They'd steal us blind, they'd watch TV all day, all these kinds of things. And there were a number of studies done during the pandemic that refute all of that. In fact, most of them show that people were more productive as they, went through the pandemic because they didn't have a commute to do every day. They didn't have to jump up and, get dressed in their business clothes, and they didn't have to put up with all the gossip at work and all that kind of stuff. So, a
Yeah.
lot of things that distract from that are things that we've all experienced, and freelancing is a perfect uh, uh, service to complement that and give organizations flexibility as they build their staffing back and that kind of thing, a combination of freelancers and employees. And the one thing that we always struggle with new people and you know many on the line have been in our programs and have our products, so you kind of understand this. But the important thing is that freelancing is not just for people that are in your local area, but it's a worldwide thing. So you're as likely to be working for somebody in the States or particularly the English speaking countries around the
Yeah.
world, or
Mm.
working for companies that want to sell or service products and services in English speaking companies. Lots of opportunity to tap into your English language skills to help out there. And we're going to go through a few of the kinds of jobs that are available. And I'm going to ask uh, Maz in just a moment after we look at a few of these to talk a little bit about what her experience is, because one of the things I hear, well, you're in the United States and there's always good opportunity there. And no, this is
Yeah.
in the 20 years I've been doing this, it's a worldwide opportunity. And wrapping your head around the thought that you may help a company in Croatia figure out how to market their tourist destinations, or just proofreading their tourism website so that it's something that people in the English-speaking world can understand and make sense. So one of the things I did in preparation for this was in my last night. I went on one of the systems and looked up the total number of jobs. And I do this a lot of times when we do a live workshop. And I did a live workshop just before the pandemic started. And the number of jobs, when I looked it up in end of February, was about 120,000. So just raw numbers, the total number of jobs in this particular system has almost doubled on a daily basis. So in this system today, there's 212,000 jobs in there. Of course, that's too many, and that's why we're in business, because nobody can figure out of 212,000 jobs which one's going to be a perfect fit for them. And that's a big part of what we teach people to do, is how to pare that down to a dozen to 24 jobs that you can look at and make proposals on so you can work. And one of the things in these systems, and this is the Upwork system, is there are people actually looking for people that speak the Australian version of English or understand Australian tax issues, or you'll see a lot of voiceover work for people that speak Australian, as we say. And
Yeah.
you'll see customer service. And Maz, I know that you've seen a lot of these jobs in there. In fact, I've got an example coming up of one job that you did. Let's just pop over to that right now, and
Yeah.
maybe you could
Let's
talk a little bit about
talk
that. This
about.
is the Australian speakers
Yeah.
needed for phone conversation. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
So So you find that once you've been working on one of these platforms for a while, you often get approached by people looking for someone with your credentials. So because I'm an Australian and I have an Australian accent, I was asked or invited to apply for a job. And what it consisted of was reading out words and phrases with my natural accent. There are a lot of them, and a lot of them were repeated in different ways. And I'm guessing that so that the person that's listening to it gets a different accent, or a different sense of how the word can be said. So just with my Australian accent, I was invited to work on a job just like this. So there's certainly, if you think you have no skills and you only have the skill of your accent, there's a job for you straight up. It was a
Yes,
really interesting job and very different from other work I've done, but definitely fun.
yes, and makes for a payday. You don't know who
Yeah,
this company is, uh,
that's right.
and oftentimes you'll work for somebody, but they've spent over $1 million on this
Mhm.
particular network.
Mhm.
They have a
Yeah,
5-star rating, so they're wonderful to work for. And
yeah,
so this is the kind of thing that you're looking for in a job, potentially. And as you put together your portfolio, the kind of stuff you'd like to do online, it's helpful to go in and see some of these jobs and try out a few things. And some
yeah,
you may like doing, and others you may not like doing, but it's a little bit like an appetizer uh,
yeah.
tray working its way around a party. You can try a little of this and a little of that, and see what it's
That's
like.
right.
And let's look at a
Yeah,
few of these other jobs here. So here's a professional copy editor. And so this is one of the things that I've found over the time I've been doing this is a lot of people, if we're baby boomers, we've got 20, 30, 40 years experience in some cases of maybe having had the job of copy editor or not, but having had the experience of somebody was always shoving a proposal or business correspondence or a manual or a new policy or a new procedure in front of you and saying, would you take a look at this so I can figure out, if I've got it right here, does this make sense to you? That kind of thing. And so, we're looking for people that have experience with proofreading and grammar and copy editing and fact checking and that kind of thing. And here
yeah,
again, this is a company based in Australia that spent more than 400,000 on this particular system. So this is a kind of a wonderful sort of job to have. Um,
yeah.
this is another one that is let's see, does the word vanities ring a bell, Maz? Is that
Not to me. No, not to
uh,
me, but it might
yeah.
to some of the listeners. That doesn't mean anything to me. But
Yes, yeah, I've and they're
yeah,
specifically requesting Australian English here, as you can see in
English.
the skills
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
And they've spent over $500,000 on here. And these are all, this isn't, it's not like, one job a year they put up there like that. This was, I just went in and typed in Australia in the search engine and looked at a few of uh, the jobs in there, and this is what I plucked out
and
of
that's
there
what you
as
got. Yeah,
examples. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And let's go ahead, Miss.
And something I just wanted to mention something that I've noticed in the time that I've been doing this work, which is a few years. Um, when I first started out as a freelancer, there weren't as many jobs that were Australia focused or based in Australia. The large proportion of them were in the Northern Hemisphere, but that's definitely changed. And as we just saw in your slides, probably in the last 12 months, even more so. But even still, I've never had trouble getting work. Um, and the thing about being in the Southern Hemisphere and working for a Northern Hemisphere firm is that in many ways, you have an advantage because you've got the time difference. If you bid on a job and you're accepted, while the Northern Hemisphere are asleep, you can already have done a day's work and got the project to the person in time, on time, essentially while they're sleeping. So in many ways, being here is a distinct advantage. Certainly don't view it as a negative
Right.
in my
Yes, that's
experience.
that's a great point is, and freelancing has a little bit been that way since the very inception. A lot of these companies that we've talked about so far have been around 20 years or so, and the idea, it's kind of like, the fairy tale where you put your tooth under the pillow, and the tooth fairy comes along and takes your tooth and leaves the money there, or that you put your shoes out by your door and the shopkeeper comes along, and it's a real
Yeah,
acceleration principle. There are whole companies now that heavily rely on that, is that they get 2 days of work basically in one, because
yeah,
every afternoon or every other afternoon or whatever, they shove off a bunch of proofreading and editing and that kind of stuff, or making PowerPoints, or writing customer service responses, or whatever it might be, off to different time zones around the world. And so once they get that kind of synchronized, they're able to pull that off very handily. So
mm,
non-trivial. And I know, Maz, that there's lots of, obviously, some people have blue collar skills and some people have white collar
yeah,
skills. And could you talk a
yeah,
little bit
that's
about
right.
that?
Yeah, well, as a coach, I've worked with both ends of the spectrum. So there's people who we would call tradies here, who, haven't spent a lot of time in the classroom. They're more hands-on workers. They've done jobs that consist of being out on a job, work site, um, not sitting at a computer. And then the other end of the spectrum are people who've had high-end Commonwealth government jobs who still, aren't sure how to fit their skills to a job platform like this because it's a new way for them of working. So people at both ends of the spectrum have come to seek coaching to find a way into these job platforms. And I've found that almost everybody has some skill that they can use as a freelancer. It's just finding that skill and working out what jobs there are. That's, I guess that's the coach's trick, is working that out.
Yes.
But I've definitely worked with people who have that difference, that broad difference in skills.
Yes, and we've got a few examples coming up of some of those kinds of skills, and what kind of things people can do. And here's, some of the jobs are very high end. This is somebody,
Yeah,
presumably a vitamin supplement person, and consult to the Australia marketplace. How to move products and
yeah,
into a market. You'll see a lot of this kind of thing. Now, this one is looking for somebody that has experience in compliance and retail and consumer goods. But if you've had a career, uh, a lot of us, myself included, you start out doing a few jobs. I work for Ryder Systems, which is a transportation company, worldwide company, and they basically rent trucks, to lease trucks to major organizations around the world, and handle all the paperwork that goes along with those vehicles, and all the compliance that goes along with that.
yeah,
And I worked in a retail department store chain and that kind of thing. And after a while, because of my background in college, wound up working for a computer company, and then that kind of set the course for my career. But I do have lots of training and lots of experience around working for department stores, working in the grocery business, working in the transportation business, and all of those skills can potentially be brought to bear on the kind of work that you can do, because people that are out looking for individuals to do things like proofreading, they don't want the best proofreader in the world. What they want is a proofreader that's good and understands the business they're in. It at a very
Yeah.
superficial level, but having worked
Mm.
in early in my career for 2 years with a department store, I know a whole lot more about department stores than 99% of the people walking around out there. So that's some of the kind of stuff that Maz can help you sort of flesh out, and
Yeah.
we find that in about a 45-minute discussion we can get a pretty good fix on the kinds of things you can do, and then it's up to you to decide whether that is that a fit
Yeah.
or not, and so that's why that if you're listening to this live in the chat window, we have a you can schedule an appointment with Maz. That's usually the best thing. There's no charge for that, and we truly are focused on helping you discover if this can work for you, because that's we don't want to drag anybody kicking and screaming to freelancing.
Yeah.
It's just not a fit for everybody, so
No,
that's okay. But
that's
in this day
that's
and
true.
age, we all know
Yeah.
it's a fit for some of us, and that's where someone like Maz can help the most. And so
Yeah.
just jump in there and schedule a call if it makes sense. Now, a lot of people think, I know when I was a kid, we had a guy in the neighborhood. So I'm in my late 60s now. So I was a kid a long time ago. But the freelancer in the neighborhood was uh, a weird person. We always thought that it was somebody that couldn't hold down a job for some reason. And of course, in the U.S., the freelance economy is basically about a third of all adults are working in part or altogether in the freelance economy. And certainly, the pandemic has put a fine point on this whole idea of yes, people can work from home. And in fact,
Mm.
one of the surveys I saw the other day said that 30% of folks whose companies want them to come back into the office don't want to go, and
Mm.
they're kind of doing this tap dance of, well, what are you going to do? We know they can work from home successfully, and so they're thinking about coming up with models where you might come in the office once a week, twice a week, something like that. But the whole idea of working remotely is here to stay given the pandemic. If we hadn't had the
Yeah.
pandemic, it probably would have been another 3, 4, 5 years before companies got to that mindset. But
Mm.
most companies, most nonprofits, most government organizations are there right now. So that's an important thing to realize, that the timeline in this got accelerated. And
And
yes, go
Winton,
ahead, man. Yeah,
that's also true in Australia with the pandemic last year. A lot of businesses had to really either sink or swim and adapt their business model to accommodate working remotely. So many businesses, reinvented themselves with a different line of service that was fully online. So
very
of
good.
course
Yes.
those businesses are continuing in that way and have thrived. Um,
Yeah.
but you're right. It's like it's the future. It's
Yeah.
it's here to stay, and we need to embrace online working
Yes, yes.
nowadays.
I don't do much surfing these days, but when I did
Mm.
surf a little bit, it's really important to start paddling your surfboard so when the wave comes, you're at the perfect
Yeah,
position.
yeah,
And if
that's
there ever
right.
was a time in history to start paddling in the direction of freelancing,
Wow.
it's right now. I have,
Yeah,
I've been doing this for 20 years. There is
yeah,
more momentum by far going for freelancing right now than there has
yeah,
ever been. So that's important to really
yeah,
understand. And as Maz emphasized there, uh,
yeah.
now is the time to take advantage of that. Let's see here. So this is a picture off my balcony in Huatulco, Mexico, where I moved to uh, in 2007, and you know, it's amazing to me when I move there, and every time I sit on that balcony, which is every morning I'm in Huatulco, to kind of still pinch myself and say,
Mm,
you know, I can't believe all those years I was going into chrome and glass buildings and, you know,
mm,
into a cubicle. And then as my career went on, I into an office and then into a corner office. And I'm telling you, this is the best office I've ever had, is sitting out there in the balcony with a cup of coffee in the morning. And
yeah,
you can't
yeah.
really see it here, but that's a cruise ship harbor, so we get a couple cruise ships, you know, during the cruise ship season,
Mm,
and you watch those ships come in at, you know, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and head out in the afternoon. They're usually just there for the day, and just you know, the freedom is just indescribable and all that, and that's what we specialize in, is this location independent. Um,
mm,
uh, you know, and to get back to some of the skills, you know, if you worked with Microsoft Office, whether it's Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, if you're in accounting or project management or that kind of thing, PowerPoint, um, those are the big uh, one place to look for the skill sets, not the only place. And you know, I talk to people every week that say, "Gee, I only use Word," or you know, I don't really have a big background in computers and that kind of thing." And you can see it's as simple as you know, reading sentences in Australian English uh,
yeah,
to get the ball rolling, as Maz talked about. So
yeah,
lots of good uh,
that's right.
opportunities to get started if you know how to look for them. You know,
Yeah.
that's the key. So just another article on the you know, this is Forbes covers the freelance business very well. So if you want to read more about freelancing, I recommend them as a good resource because they they talk about it. It's interesting. Most of the people that we work with, um, you know, and we started out working with baby boomers, but I didn't even realize that until I was a couple years in, that it was baby boomers. And of course, in the U.S. here, we have 10,000 uh, baby boomers a day reaching retirement age, and so there's lots of people doing that, and you know that is true around the world basically in that age group. And now we're seeing lots of people that are in their basically 50 plus. The youngest baby boomer is 54, and the baby boomer retirement at that rate is going to go on for another well until 2029. So lots of people coming to
Mm,
that, and a lot of the people that we work with, if they can earn somewhere between $500 and $1,500 a month, that's good for them. And they work 25, 30% of the time, because after all, the goal is to retire but stay a little bit busy. Other people will work, you know, towards the younger end of that spectrum, want to work, you know, 30 hours, 40 hours a week. They're ready to keep going with that. So that works as
mm.
well too. You saw some of the jobs that we had there were 30 plus hours a week, and that's a good thing. Let's see, we
And
got,
when
go ahead.
there's also another trend there, I think, with the baby boomer population. There's baby boomers like me who, when I started working, there was no compulsory super, so I don't really have enough money to retire fully. So I see, for me, freelancing is that transition to retirement where I can, you know, step back a bit from work, but continue to have an income,
Right.
working from the comfort of my home office. And I think there's a large group of people in that category in Australia where they're baby boomers, they should be retiring, but they really don't have enough money. So if they can start freelancing as a transition to, there's into their super funds, but use freelancing as a way of topping that up. There's so much potential for that age group.
Yes, that's a common thread through a
Mm,
certain number of our members is they want to see, uh, they want to push off the time that they have to start tapping their retirement funds, and this is
yeah,
a
that's right.
great way to do that. We've got a few questions here, and Robin asked that I'm challenged learning new software, and so she did our course on learning how to use Upwork, and says, but I would need notes in front of me as I work through it. And yes, that's a big part of this. And really, if there is a hard part, it's just getting familiar with the application. Uh,
Mm,
and so her question is, does Maz help in using Upwork? And yes,
yep,
we make training programs and we sell those training programs around the world, and we find that about 10 to 15% of people want coaching. And so that's a big part of what Maz helps with. Uh,
yep,
and then another question, do you have to pay to use the Upwork platform? And uh, you can pay. First of all, it's free. You can go on there and you can bid on jobs, and the way Upwork makes their money is they take a slice of what you earn on the platform. Jobs that go through the platform. So that's how that works. They also have a service. I think it's called Freelancer Plus, and most of the different platforms have that same kind of service. And on Upwork, what you're able to see when you pay for that, you get a number of different benefits, but the most important is you can see the bidding range on jobs, which is very helpful because when you first start doing this kind of work, you want to calibrate your own brain to what are the prices paid and that kind of thing, and this helps a lot. And we suggest that when you do see the bidding range, that you bid between 10 and 20% below the mid range, as you're getting started. When you're bidding on a job for somebody that you've never worked for before, that's a good inducement. You don't want to bid too cheaply. A lot of people misunderstand that. They think that, well, I'll just drop my price to nothing and I'll be able to win jobs and then I'll build up from there. And we strongly recommend against doing that because like anything else, the out of those 212,000 jobs, there are buyers that want people to work for next to nothing, and you want to avoid those people like the plague because you don't like working for next to nothing. And
that's right.
with the search criteria that Maz can teach you, the different ways we know to pare that almost $250,000 or $250,000 number of jobs down to something every day that makes sense for you. That's really what we're going for. And then let's see, there's so yes, you can pay that $15 monthly fee. You don't have to pay it. We recommend that the sane way to build your business is to come up with 3 to 5 clients that you're working with over time. And once you have a relationship with them, usually they negotiate longer term arrangements with you. And that's where you have the chance to, they know what you're capable of, you know what they're like to work for, and then you have a negotiation. And that's one of the things that we we train on, and also that coaches can be especially helpful in terms of helping you understand that, and how to leverage that price up, particularly when that happens. Let's see, there's a question here from uh, Anne. Let's see. And thank you, Anne. She says uh, barefoot course is she's recommending completing our training program, our online training, before utilizing a coach. I would say it just depends. What I know, we developed our coaching certification um, 7 years ago now, because we were getting so many requests for a coach, and I couldn't keep up with them all. And when I first started the business 13 years ago, and so what I see is that certain people, they have complicated backgrounds, that they're really committed to doing this. They want to make sure they get it quickly, and utilizing a coach can be a shortcut to doing that. And Anne mentions that she's partway through the course at the moment, and in Canberra, which is just down the road, obviously,
Yeah,
from you,
that's
Maz, and
yeah, that's right.
and 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 that's good. And you know, if coaching is a fit, having a conversation with Maz will help you understand. Is that a fit? Would it help you get where you're going faster? Some people come into our world and they buy our course and they say, I'm retiring 2 years from now. I've got the time to learn how to do this, and that's the way I want to go. Other people are retiring in 6 months, and they don't want to keep working, and they want to find something they can do from home, and they need to figure this out in a much shorter period of time, or they have a complex background. They've worked in several different industries, and that kind of thing. And so that would be an example of the person that typically benefits for uh,
A
you know,
coach.
the coach.
Yeah.
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 So,
Mm.
and so here's Wendy, and saying thank you for the session, and signed on the course a few years ago and had some challenges getting work, but then had to leave it for a while, which we see this is common. Life happens, and between fires and that sort of thing, uh,
Mm.
and pandemic, we've all had a lot of
Yeah.
adjustments to make, and she's ready to get started again. uh,
Yep.
and Wendy, I would suggest having a call with Maz, and she can show you some of the techniques that we use to search things. You already have a basic understanding of what we do, and
Yep.
the thing is, um, she's mentions that it was really difficult to get work on Upwork as an Aussie like it was before. And I will say that
Ah. Mm.
certainly the first, when people think of themselves as an Aussie, they're typically limiting their work to Australia.
Yeah.
And not everybody, and I realize that may not be the case for Wendy, but when you think, you have to expand your thinking. This is global work in the English
Mm.
language, and you're working around the world. You're not just looking for Australian jobs. And so probably having a call with Maz would be a great thing to do. And let
Yeah.
me put that in the chat window again, because I see we've had some people that have joined us since we got started here. And so there's Maz's calendar link and her profile there. So we have just a few more slides to go, and I'm gonna go through some of these, like a, a motorcycle ride through an art gallery here. This is let me just get up to the best networks online. And this is a really important slide. This company, this is came out with this chart before the pandemic. Each one of these little icons represents a company, organization in the gig economy. One of the sites, like the one we've been talking about a lot today, is Upwork, and the other one is Fiverr, and so they're down here in the lower left-hand corner. Um, some of these companies up here, like Uber and Lyft, are obviously you have to show up physically. We focus on the ones highlighted in yellow, where you just show up on your, you can do from home. So that's what the emphasis there. And you can see there's tutoring, there's doing simple tasks, there's doing online surveys, there's writing, including ebooks and blogs. There's lots of crafting work, art and design work. If you have a background in that, there's 4 sites here dedicated just to proofreading. There's others that are dedicated to selling photographs, others dedicated to editing video and that kind of thing, voiceover work, which we saw a lot of in Australian
Yeah.
language. So lots of different things there. And this is going to be a little bit like a motorcycle ride through an art gallery, because I'm just going to highlight some of the places. This is Upwork. And Maz has a list of these sites that she can
Yep.
provide you. Um, but Upwork is the what we would call in the South in the United States the Big Daddy Rabbit out there. They paid out approximately 2.7 billion US dollars last year to freelancers around the world, and uh, and it's funny, these sites always have people that are uh, you know they tend to be youth oriented, but about 25% of the people like me could never cross my legs sitting on a cube quite like that. But this is an opportunity for baby boomers that they really have the background. So uh, let's see, here we go. This is another site. This is the Just Answer site. This site is particularly good for medical and nursing professionals. You can get a mechanic's second opinion. You can be sitting at your car dealership waiting to get your car serviced, and they tell you, you go in thinking it should cost about $300, and pretty soon you've got a work order that you're staring at for $1,000. You take a picture with it, your iPhone, send it to this place. You talk to somebody who's a mechanic service manager, and they tell you what you need to get and what you don't need to get. So lots of different things there. This slide shows what I would call the Willie Nelson of the home repairs business. He's works on these networks. He helps people do remodels. He helps them, when they're he basically looks over their shoulder. And today, with video and snapping pictures and sharing contracts for doing remodels and that kind of stuff, you can have somebody in your pocket that looking over the work that you're getting done with a local contractor, that kind of thing. Of course, lawyers on here, and one of the questions I get is, well, won't I get in trouble for practicing law here or there? Is that these systems are set up so you're getting general advice. You're not creating a lawyer-client relationship or a doctor-patient relationship or that kind of thing. So all that kind of stuff has been worked out. Here's family physician. You'll see it says accepts. Usually these accepts are in the $30 to $50 a session kind of a thing. Most of them are done with email. And I talked to one physician that worked on this system, and he said what he found is when he started working on it, he would write up emails in response, but after he hit about 20 emails, he found that the requests kind of were repeating. So instead of, taking an hour to respond, that after he had 20 or 30 of these responses, that basically most of the requests he got fit into those 20 or 30. And so instead of taking a half hour or an hour to respond, he was able to cut and paste and then customize some of what he was responding with, and he could respond in 5 to 10 minutes instead of taking a half hour. So here's a nurse practitioner that is she's done 11,000 sessions. Basically, that translates, I mean, we don't know exactly, but to roughly $250,000. That was probably over a period of time, over a period of years, but that would be, show you the example of the kind of activity that you can do there. So that um, here's a guy that can help with your spa. Here's a former police officer that helps people with their gun, gun collections, basically. This is a startup site that helps startups exclusively. That's their focus, and they focus in all these different areas. Whether it's funding or product design or different industries, different technologies, that kind of thing, sort of HR advice, lots of different things. And if you feel you need to talk to Mark Cuban, you can go on this site, and for $166 a minute, you can speak with him. And if your needs are more modest, you can talk to an accountant for $2.50. And I know that I've used this a number of times. It's hard to get an appointment with my accountant, and sometimes I have a pretty simple, straightforward question, and I can get an answer today, in the next hour, rather than wait to schedule an appointment with him and that kind of thing. So a nice supplement to that. So let's see. Here's a dentist on there, so you can if you have a grandchild that's or that's interested in or the dentist has recommended um, uh, a uh, course of treatment or something, and you want to get a second opinion, this is a great way to do that and just get a quick read on what that might be. Here's another one, selling your personal vintage collection. And one of the things that I've gone through, and many baby boomers that I run into all the time, they want to downsize, and they've got some, maybe a coin collection that they inherited from their parents, or some collection of material that they want to get rid of. And here's somebody for $2 a minute that can help you uh, figure out how to sell what you've got, no matter how odd it might be. So here's Fiverr. Fiverr is, rather than custom jobs, they're more focused on what I would call off-the-shelf jobs. They focus on it's like the difference between walking into a grocery store and walking into a restaurant. In Upwork, you tell them exactly what you want, and then they tell you what the price is. When you go into Fiverr, you're walking in and you're picking something off the shelf. I need five. They have a certain package. It might be $25 to proofread 5 pages or something like that. That's how they work. And they also have added a service that makes them more like Elance or Upwork. And Upwork has added a service that makes them more like Fiverr, where you have these more service-oriented on one, and more package-oriented on the other. And then some of the other things that are out there is, now with the pandemic, with a lot of people have left, they're not going back to the same place they worked. There are lots of opportunities for employee jobs, where you get, in many times, full benefits or partial benefits, which is always attractive. And it might be a combination of on-site and uh, working remotely. So lots of good things there that have emerged. And of course, freelancer.com is an Australian company, very similar in many ways to Upwork. And then there's been a tremendous explosion in teaching things online, and this started out maybe 10 years ago with teaching kids English around the world. You don't have to speak their language, you just have to speak yours. And then as that evolved, there's all manner of teaching in different subjects, from chemistry, physics, math, teaching in English, or if you have a foreign language, many opportunities there. But this is an opportunity that has just exploded, and lots of different organizations to do that kind of work through. And before we wrap up, I see we got a flurry of questions. Bridget wants to know if she can get a PDF of the chart. And yes, Maz has all of this stuff. So, the ideal thing would be just to schedule a call with her and whatever. And um, let's see here. And yes, Deborah wants to know if she can get uh, uh, a see a list of websites that I've shown. And yes, Deborah, Mazel have that for you. So just schedule a time, and you can give her your email address, and she'll provide that for you. And Wendy says that she tried getting on Upwork and was not able to be approved, and so she's hoping that it's better now, and it was much better now. For there was a time a number of years ago when for whatever reason Upwork uh, was approving people that were based in the US and Canada uh, more frequently than they would approve English speaking people in other parts of the world. That has changed substantially, and we see very few rejections now on these systems. And so, Wendy, I would suggest that you contact Maz and just kind of bring her up to date on what's going on, and let's take a look at that and see if we can um, uh, get you submitted and get you working on online there. So that's lots of good questions there. Yes, and sites like Upwork, they're really like an airline. They have all the freelance buyers that have jobs and assignments, and that really amounts to skill sets. And if they're full up with proofreaders at a certain time, and they have less proofreading jobs than they normally do, and we find that business on these networks tends to be kind of seasonal. A lot of the proofreading jobs sort of taper off at the end of the year, because basically companies are focusing on wrapping up their year, and they're not initiating new projects. But the other side of it is they are, in January and February and March, and really in the early part of the year, we see lots of requirements for proofreading and that kind of thing. So it can depend upon the time of the year, but in general, we find that Upwork is much more accepting of uh, folks than they were before, in part because they were still building out their network as a worldwide network. So uh, yeah, lots of good chances to get that going. So the steps are really to understand your skills, knowledge, and wisdom, learn which ones are in demand in the freelance marketplace, and put your best skills on the global market. And obviously, we want to think global instead of just in the local area. We want to think broadly about not just your skills, but your knowledge and wisdom. I mean, you have decades of solving problems and uh, using different software and doing things like project management and that kind of thing, all very much in demand right now, and all done remotely. So never been a better time to get going. And you know, and a big part of this is not necessarily about the money you make, although that is important for many. We want to push off that time before we have to tap our retirement funds. But a lot of it is about the experiences that you have. And I've found that in my freelancing, my days are interesting. I meet you know, wonderful people, clients that have become lifelong friends. It's just been amazing, and it is so much more than just doing proofreading or that kind of thing. It's about having you know, social interactions, getting to know people, they get to know you. And you know, I have a number of clients that I had 20 years ago and 15 years ago and 10 years ago that I'm still in touch with on a regular basis. I mean, you know, you get to know people, you get to like them, just like you like your boss or you like people you work with. And it's just a very enjoyable way to work. I talked to somebody who was a member of one of our programs, and he said that he was doing pretty well, sort of playing the market. You know, he was doing commodities and currency and all kinds of things, and was making a little bit of money with it. But he said at the end of the day, he was in a knot, you know, because he was worried about the, you know, the wheat crop and the monsoon season and all these factors. And he said at the end of the day, he wanted to have the satisfaction of having helped somebody. And that's really what freelancing is all about. You're helping somebody get their business, get their organization, get their government agency a little bit further down the road, because you have some expertise they need and can tap into. So that's really what it's all about. And the best way to get started is to schedule a call with Maz, you know, tap into some of the resources we've talked about here, and she can send you copies of this presentation and links to a number of the all the sites that I've mentioned and that kind of thing. And learn if freelancing makes sense for you, and learn if coaching makes sense for you. Uh, you know, it's not for everybody. Uh, you know, we're not going to try to ram this stuff down your throat, but if it makes sense, it's a good fit. And now is a great time to start paddling and get your surfboard positioned to take maximum advantage of that wave that we're seeing now as we come out of the pandemic. Um, and let's see, thanks, Eva, for your kind words. That's good. So any other questions, just drop them in the chat window. Wendy says, thanks. Good to see you, Wendy. Thanks for coming in. Any other questions or comments? Sherry, thanks. Sherry's getting restarted after some challenges there. So good for you, Sherry. A lot of this is just putting one foot in front of the other, you know, and that's one of the areas that a coach can be very helpful, you know, to stay on track. In you know, one of the big attractions is this thing called accountability, and how do we keep on track when life gets in the way. And you know, we're not going to stop that. And of course, you've seen it with the fires and the pandemic and all the things that you've gone through over the past period of time. And you know, and it's always something. It's kids, it's family, it's work. There's always a distraction, but that's one of the great things about working with a coach can bring to you, is just helping maintain that focus or get back on track um, when you're restarting. So that's a good thing. And so, Maz, any closing comments before we sign off here? Oop, let's see. I think your microphone is. There we go.
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm not sure I was. Um, oh no, just that I love working with people, and I like Quinton said, it's very exciting times for freelancing, and I enjoy helping people get where they want to go. So if you're inclined to talk to me, really happy to have a chat about where you're heading and what sort of help you might need. And it's great to be working with people in this country. I've worked a lot with people in the US, and it'll be terrific to be helping some fellow Aussies with this freelancing journey.
Great. Excellent. All righty. Well, thanks, Maz. And
Okay, thank you.
be sure and grab her link there, and we will send you also a follow-up email that will take you to a place where you can rewatch this presentation if there's any part of it that you want to go back and take a look at again. And Maz can help you with all those links and everything. So have a good day, and Maz, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening.
Okay. And thanks,
Okay.
Bridget and
Okay.
Sherry, for your kind words, and Robin. Good to talk to you. Good to see you here. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Allison, adios.